Live to London now, and Patrick Henningsen, who's a geopolitical analyst for the current affairs website U.K. column. Patrick, so nice to have you. So now that Turkish parliament approved cross-border military involvement, how far are we from seeing ground troops going in?
I think it's going to be one step at a time in this situation. Obviously, there's a lot of risk involved for both Syria and for Turkey if they want to escalate this conflict. This is a very unfortunate incident, but as I will get into later, there's a reason why it happened.
Now, where does Turkey stand legally in being able to send troops abroad in terms of international law?
Well, it depends whose international law we're talking about. Certainly the United States, Great Britain, Israel, these sort of countries have never really had to abide by international law. But I guess Turkey and Syria are in the lower tiers below those sort of powerful countries who are above the law. So in terms of the international community, this is a good test for the whole concept of international law. It's also a test for the United Nations to see if they're really able to diplomatically achieve any sort of peace accords, which they've patently failed at over and over again for quite a long time. So there's a danger this could escalate and it could spread, particularly because of Turkey's connections with NATO.
Now, what do you make of Turkey's response to the shelling from Syria? Are 2 days of firing a proportionate reaction?
Well, is it kind of I'm afraid to say, this is sort of it looks like a setup. We saw the same thing in Afghanistan in the 80s. The United States was arming and funding mujahideen who were attacking and baiting the Soviet Union to come over the Afghan border. Eventually, the Soviet Union did occupy a large portion of Afghanistan as a result of that, but that was a guerrilla warfare, a Western-backed affair that was used to draw in the Soviet Union. So in this case, the Free Syrian Army and the U.S.-backed al-Qaeda terrorist groups that are funded by Great Britain and the United States are allowed to have bases now in Turkey. So of course, you have to read between the lines. If Syrian troops are firing across the border, there is definitely a good reason. Syria has no interest in starting a war with Turkey, as any common sense person or commentator would look at it. But in the case of being baited into protecting their own interests, Turkey's providing a safe haven for terrorists, Western-backed terrorists. So this looks like a setup in order to draw Turkey into a conflict and also to further isolate Syria as a nation state.
So do you believe that that's the reason Assad wants to stoke tension with his neighbor when there are plenty of rebel attacks and terror blasts at home to deal with?
Well, certainly the Syrian government and the security forces have their hands full. But, you know, the government in Syria is well within its right to criticize Turkey and to defend itself. After all, when your neighbor is providing bases for terrorist groups, large groups, and Turkey has been doing this as far back as last year, they've been providing safe haven for terrorists from the Free Syrian Army and al-Qaeda. So in that situation, you have to think any country is within its right to object to that, and it could lead to an altercation. But the way it's being framed in the media and in the West is that Syria has aggressed its neighbor. This is a typical kind of bait, false flag baiting sort of exercise that the Western governments and their intelligence agencies are very skilled at. And they're also skilled at spinning that in the media to then further their own agenda. And the agenda in this case is a collapse of the Syrian state and regime change and a few dominoes that are to fall after that happens.
All right, geopolitical analyst providing insight, Patrick Henningsen from current affairs website UK column, live from London.
Thanks, Karen.